Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, go ahead and throw a thumbs up in the chat. Fantastic. Everybody's joining. Great. Great, great, great. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So I'm new to the Zoom webinar platform, so apologies as I try to sort of figure things out and make sure it runs smoothly. Where is everybody based? Whilst we wait for we'll give people a few minutes to join. Where is everybody based? Go ahead and drop it into the chat here. We got some Zimbabwe, Philippines, Malawi, fantastic, Switzerland, London. Wow, all over the world. That's amazing. We got some Dakar, a lot of India, Ghana, representing from Ghana. Hi, Naomi. We got Cairo. I love Cairo. Some Dar es Salaam, the Netherlands. Fantastic. Well, we've got about 65 people here, so we'll give folks a few more minutes to join, and then we'll get the show on the road. Hi, Narendra. Matthew from Abuja, I remember that guy. Got some Yemen in here, fantastic. There's this polling feature that I'm going to try out here. Let's see. Just a fun icebreaker whilst we wait for people. We'll start in about 2 minutes. Let's see. Allow panelists to vote. Launch poll here. So there's a poll that I've launched right now to see if the poll feature works. What superpower would you like to have? The options are mind reading, invisibility, teleportation, time travel, and I already have a superpower. Let's see. Let's see what that looks like. Hi from the Republic of Georgia. I'm sure there's also people from the state of Georgia here. Lots of voting. It would seem like this call looks like mind reading and teleportation are. For teleportation, I always feel like that's almost a criminal mindset. Or maybe you really don't like traveling. All right. We'll give folks a few more minutes. Thanks for voting. COVID induced. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Well, that's really fun. Hi, Sylvia. All right, we'll leave the poll to run whilst I try to continue here. We got some folks from Khartoum, fantastic. I think Juba was the last place I went before this whole pandemic thing started. Let me close some windows here so I can see more things at once. Maybe if I do it down here. I've got a lot of windows open, so I'm going to try to keep track of everything. Fantastic. Great. So we're at the 5-minute mark. I'm just going to go ahead and get started because we don't have a ton of time. So first, welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar from all over the world. My name is Yaw. I am founder and CEO of ODK. I'm based in California. I'm in San Diego, right across the border from Mexico. So it's 6 in the morning here. I haven't had any coffee, but I'm wide awake because I am really excited to show you some of ODK's newest features and features that can help you keep your data clean and show you a little bit about how to connect that data to a real-time dashboard. As far as an agenda, I'm going to give a 5-minute overview of what ODK is, who uses it, why they use it, and then I'll touch on ODK Cloud, which is a cloud hosting solution, for a minute or so, and then jump into the demo. There are a lot of people here, so it's hard to cover everything. If you have any questions along the way during the presentation, There should be a Q&A section in the bottom of your Zoom screen. So type your questions there, and I'll do my best to bring it up during the presentation. And I'll also try to leave a lot of time for questions at the end. Okay, great. So now for the scariest part, I'm going to share my screen, and let's hope that this works. We'll share your screen here. Advanced portion of the screen. Let's see. Okay. All right, so we should be sharing my screen now. If you can confirm in the chat that you do see a screen that says clean data, clean dashboard. Can people see that? All right, fantastic. So, perfect. So far, so good. So some of you already know what ODK is, but for those that don't, ODK lets you build powerful offline forms to collect the data you need wherever it is. It's data collection software that's designed to work really well offline. As part of the core team, we make ODK for everybody, but our focus really is on social impact and empowering those who are making positive change. So because of this mission, ODK is open source software. It's made in a community-oriented way that enables everyone to participate in the making of ODK. This sort of open source community-oriented approach, it's a little different than other data collection tools out on the market, but we think it's been key to our success. ODK is a little unique in that it's used across a bunch of different sectors. I pulled some tweets from Twitter just to give you a sense of the range here. So CGIAR uses ODK for their agricultural research. The Red Cross and Red Crescent National Societies, they use ODK in pretty much every phase of the disaster cycle. One of my personal favorites is the government of Australia, of Western Australia. They use ODK for their turtle monitoring. And then while ODK is used in a bunch of these, election monitoring, a bunch of these different sectors, our biggest users are certainly in global health and in global development. So just as an example, the Ministry of Health in Uganda vaccinated 19.5 million kids from measles and polio, and ODK was used in the data collection in that effort. So for us, the bottom line is that ODK is the global standard for data collection. In the last 12 months, it's been used in every country in the world except for Greenland and North Korea. And Greenland isn't even a country, so I don't know if it counts. It's even been used on the International Space Station, which is really cool. And we are working on getting it to Mars. So we'll see about that. ODK is also critical infrastructure globally. So case in point, the WHO sent out a survey, WHO and UNICEF sent out a survey to all the technical partners who are helping with the COVID-19 vaccination distribution worldwide. And as part of the survey, they asked, what key technologies are needed to deliver these vaccines globally. And you can see, cloud infrastructure, mobile devices, internet connection, desktop computers, and ODK. So we really do think the platform has become sort of critical infrastructure for a lot of projects. And it's a responsibility that we have that we're proud of, and it's a responsibility that we take really, really seriously. So why do these people end up using ODK? Well, people use ODK. ODK has sort of become the standard for millions of these people because it does exactly what we say it does. You can build powerful offline forms that include photos and locations, skip logic, calculations, external data sets. You can collect data offline, either with the mobile app ODK Collect or on the web app, and I'll show you some examples of that. Forms and submissions are synchronized only when a connection is found. And you can analyze your data using tools like Power BI and Excel and R, and these can let you build dashboards that you can share out to your organization. And that's going to be the main focus of this webinar. ODK is proven at scale. It's used globally. Lots of projects collect millions of submissions. It's trusted across sectors, like I talked about, in global health, global development, humanitarian aid. And if it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, you can extend it or try compatible alternatives. Is really the power of open source, and that's the power of ODK. I've got one more slide, and then we'll jump into the demo here, one or two more slides. The question I get asked a lot is ODK free? And it's an interesting question. ODK is open source software. It's free in that you can take the software for free, you can modify it, you can self-host it, and if you're hosting it and you need help, you can rely on our community volunteers for help. Now, all that requires time and technical expertise. And so if you don't have that time, or you don't want to rely on volunteers for help, and you don't have the technical expertise, we do offer a solution, and that's ODK Cloud. ODK Cloud, we launched it in October of last year. It's basically the same ODK software, but it's on a fast, reliable, secure, hassle-free platform. It's software as a service, so we take care of all the updates and the backups and the uptime so you can focus on the data collection. It comes also with technical support from the very people who make ODK and have deployed it at scale. So it's basically ODK on the cloud with support from the core team. So if you don't want to use the cloud, our cloud hosting, you can always download the software, install it on your own servers, and support it by yourself. Great. We're now ready to sort of jump into the demo, but before we jump into the demo, are there any questions so far about what ODK is, who uses it, and why they use it? If you have questions, remember we have this Q&A section here. I don't see any questions that have been asked so far, so I'm going to wait for 1 second to make sure there are no questions that I can take care of right now. Okay, fantastic. Oh, there are some Q&A questions coming up. Great. Yeah, two quick questions. What made me create ODK? There's a long story about that. I'll talk about that, but basically I was in Sub-Saharan Africa working for an organization and some colleagues at the University of Washington, and I started it to just make data collection a little easier. Jonathan, I will send you a longer link. We have some questions about ODK and KOBO. I'll address that in a second, and XLS form. Great questions. Keep the questions coming. Let's jump into the demo, and we'll take that on. So for the demo, I'm going to show you ODK Central, which is our new server that runs on ODK Cloud. I'll show you how to use projects to organize forms and users. I'll show you form drafts and updates. I'll show you submission flagging and editing, and then I'll show you some examples of connecting ODK to Excel and Power BI. So to do that, I'm going to have to show you this project screen. So this is ODK Central. It's our new server. The thing that's really exciting about Central is that it lets you organize data collection forms and users into projects. So a project has unlimited forms, it has unlimited users, and lets you assign specific forms to specific users. Most people don't need multiple projects. A single project is all they need. But if you're at a larger organization where you have when you need separate workspaces by program or by country, then you can use multiple projects. So let's go into, I have two projects. They always do a live demo project, and then the clean data, clean dashboard project. Let's go into the clean data, clean dashboards projects. So within projects, you can see that you have a list of forms. We have our favorite color form, and then we have our team review form. Some of them have submissions here. You can control access to each project in your project roles. So here, Ellen and myself are project managers. We can carry out any task within the project. We can add forms, we can remove forms, we can manage app users. And then Matt here is a project viewer. He can only view data, download data. He can't change anything. And then Issa is a data collector. She can fill out forms in a web browser. So those project roles. And then there's also app users. So app users are essentially your field staff. Each app user has a QR code that you can scan. And so, for example, we have team 1 and team 2, and each of these teams have a separate QR code that they can scan. And it's these QR codes that connect their mobile device to the server. And in fact, let's just see if we can do a quick demonstration of sort of how that works with an actual phone. Let's see, we'll plug in my phone here. I have a Android phone here. I'm just going to connect it really quickly. And so we can, uh-oh, did the camera go off? Yes, it did. All right, give me just a second here. Let me unplug this and see if our camera will come back on. All right, I think the camera's back on, right? All right, it looks like camera's back on. Is the camera back on? All right, okay, so maybe we won't do that part because this looks like the phone has too much draw. Great, so you can scan a QR code, and the QR code is what connects the app to the server. The way you control access to individual forms is that you can see here that in our form access, the supervisor only has access to the favorite color and team review form, whereas the teams only have access to the favorite color form. Okay, so that's how you control access within a particular project. Like all things in ODK, we do support multiple languages in Central. So for example, this page is in English right now, but if I wanted to toggle it to Spanish, I could do that. French, I could do that. And if you don't see your language here on this list, you can click that link below and contribute your own language. And we encourage folks to do that. Okay, so that's a high level of project overview. You have project roles that control access. We have app users that are the folks who are in the field collecting data, and then you can control who has access to which forms based in the form access. Perfect. All right. Now, let's dig into forms. So I have a favorite form here, favorite color form. And with Central, you can make any change to the form that you want. You can add, you can remove questions. You can try them out as a draft. And then whenever you're ready to publish it, you publish it, and then it goes out to data collectors. One thing that's a little different than other servers is that we provide sort of guidance along the way. So you can see here that we have a checklist that tells you where you are in the phase of your data collection. For example, if you want to upload a new form version, I'm going to upload that really quickly. Here's my favorite color form. Upload it. It gives you these little warnings. So for example, it tells you that you have a picture here in this form, but the picture doesn't use the max pixels parameter, and so you might end up getting really enormous pictures that you can't use. So it sort of provides you guidance along the way to make sure that you're not doing anything weird. If, for example, I try to publish a form that I haven't tried on a mobile device, it tells you, hey, we saw that you've uploaded a form with changes, but you didn't really try it out on the mobile device. Are you sure you want this to go out to a bunch of people? And we definitely do not want to do that. So that's one big thing that's really nice about Central is, yeah, it helps you sort of throughout the data collection process to make sure that you are, you're filling out data and doing best practices. One other thing that I want to show you really quickly is that you can fill out forms now within the web browser. So you don't, if your data collectors don't have mobile devices, or you want to send out something, SurveyMonkey style to a bunch of data collectors or participants, you can do that. And in fact, I am going to send a link directly into the chat with a link to this same form. And so if you follow this link, it'll show you this same form, and you can fill it out within the web browser. You probably shouldn't use your real name and information, but you can if you want to. So if you want to do an example here, I'm just going to fill out my name, Yaw Anokwa, 39, male. My favorite color is green. I am based in San Diego. We'll do this, and my phone number 123456789. That is not my real phone number. I'm going to hit submit. Okay, cool. So if we go then into the submissions page, you can see that the data that I just submitted is right here. Submitted it from the web today at 6:19 a.m. I submitted the data. So you can see my data is here, right here in the form. You can do a bunch of filtering. So for example, I can see the data that was sent in by team 1. You can see the data that was, if you want to see that. So you filter by who sent it in. You can filter by dates. So I just want to see the data that was sent yesterday. And you can also filter by what columns are shown to the user. So right now we have a bunch of information, first name, last name, age, and all these kinds of things. If you don't care about any of those kinds of things, you can toggle this and say, I just want to see maybe the first name, age, and the color information. All right, so you can select which columns you want to see. You can filter by who sent it, and all that information is there available. Now, there's some very obvious mistakes with this survey, right? Like here, Stephanie's age is 98. Well, that isn't right. So you can just go ahead and you can reject submissions that don't make any sense to you. Toggle here. Let's say this form has issues. So you can change the state and the status of any submission by just clicking the check mark here and either approving it or rejecting it. So you can look at what data looks good to you, approve it or reject it, and all that is stored right here in the database. Now, you can do more than that. So here, I'm looking at Jennifer's record that's down here. It looks like she selected other, and then her favorite color is saddle brown. Well, saddle brown seems a lot like regular brown to me. So if I edit the submission, it'll load Jennifer's submission, and we can do things like change it from saddle brown to brown. We'll leave everything else the same, hit submit. And now it's noticed that I have changed the data and that I should leave a comment to make sure that the data has some context around that change. I'm going to do that and say saddle brown is basically the same thing as brown. I'm going to leave my comment. And then at that point, I'm going to go ahead and approve the submission. So you can see that all the changes that have been made, you're leaving lots of comments as you make each change. And so you have this whole conversation about each submission that you can have with anyone on your team as you're approving, rejecting, flagging, and editing submissions. All that data is in there. Okay, so you can see now that Jennifer's submission down here, it has 2 edits. If we go into more, we can see that entire submission history. Okay, I'm going to go back here. We see some submissions now. So we have a bunch of submissions here. Everything that you're seeing, if you're a developer and you're sort of watching this, everything that you're seeing here that I'm doing in the user interface is also available via a very powerful REST API. I use this API all the time, and it's just so easy to work with. It's just, it's just like a really beautiful thing. So in fact, I just want to show you really quickly that I have a little script here that's going to add a bunch of submissions to the data. So let me just send a couple of submissions here. So it's generated a bunch of submissions. If I refresh this table, you see that here, I've generated a ton of submissions that have come in already. And even the review process, I can also do via API. So I'm just going to do some random reviews here. So I run this little script that goes through and changes the state. And you can see that's now some of the submissions have been ejected. Some of them have been approved. And so all that work that you're seeing here is being done via the API. You can submit via API. Any button that I press on the screen, you can do the same thing and program it via the API. Okay. You can always download the data down as a CSV, and you can download by the filter data set. So right now we have 16 total submissions. You can see that here it says 16. But if I go to filter just by the data that was sent by team 1, and you can see that is now down to 3 matching records. And so when I download this data as a CSV, I'm only getting my filtered data set. So it's very handy for for downloading some subset of the data if you want. And again, you can do that through the API. But it's 2021. We don't want people downloading data sets manually if they don't have to. So that's where our OData feed comes in. And so we have OData feed, which is a technology that basically lets you take the data that's in Central and put it in Excel or Power BI or R or now Google Data Studio. And you can use this to pull your data live from the server into your favorite analytics platform and analyze your data that way. So I'm going to show you an example of this right now. This is the trickiest part of the demo because my Excel runs inside a virtual machine. And so it can sometimes not work too well. So let's see. So we have an Excel spreadsheet here. Now, to be clear, this is an Excel spreadsheet that has a live connection to the data that we just sent in. Right now, it has 11 submissions in various states. And so I'm going to click the data tab here, and I'm going to hit refresh. And what that spreadsheet is going to do is that it's going to go out to the server. It's going to grab all the submissions that I've sent since the last time I refreshed it, and then it's going to show it here. And so indeed, here you do see that we've got a bunch more submissions. They've been reviewed, and the columns that I've chosen are now here available for me. In fact, you can see this row here, the rejected submission, Yaw male green is here. Okay, and to prove that this is a live link, I'm going to go back to my submissions table here on the server. Where's my record? My record here, I'm going to change it from rejecting to approving. So my record has been approved. I'm going to minimize this again. And now we're looking for row 7 here. We're going to see if that changes. We're going to hit refresh. It's going to go out, and there you see that my submission has been approved. So any change that you make to the server, once you hit refresh, as the submissions are coming in or being changed, all that data is being reflected on the dashboard. And now that you're in Excel, you can do cool things, right? You can do things like a pivot table, which shows you the data that's coming in by individual date. This is the male and the female records. So whatever analysis you can do in your spreadsheet, it stays the same. You can share the spreadsheet with others, and it becomes a really powerful way to do your data analysis. But you don't just have to use Power BI, right? Excel is kind of the boring one. Here is a Power BI dashboard that I put together to show you what else you can do. So here is the same data set. In fact, I'm going to go and hit refresh. And you see that some of the records will update now. So the same data set, but instead of a tabular view, you can now see all the data that is coming in that we've submitted. So you can see that green is other, blue is male, red is female. And so these are all the individual submissions that are coming in. So you can visualize on a map, which is very helpful. You can also do things like obviously pie charts. This is the various colors that people have picked. The thing that's really nice about Power BI also is that you can share these and you can filter data within these dashboards. You can publish these dashboards on the web. And it's live updating with your data in Central. You can do things like, well, here are the submissions that have been red is rejected, green is approved. So these are the various submissions. You can do these kinds of things. And again, it is live updating. So we're going to send in some more submissions here. This script sends 5 submissions at a time. When I go hit refresh, and again, it'll grab the submissions. And then there you go. We have a bunch more submissions. So as new data comes in, it all gets updated, and it's pretty wild. So we're at the half-minute mark. Just to sort of summarize where we've been so far, you can use ODK Central to manage your projects. You can group users and forms. You can upload form drafts and updates, and the server takes care of all of those. You can have submissions that come in. You can edit those submissions. You can flag them. You can have comments. You can have entire conversations about those submissions. And then as you're editing your data, you can connect it to tools like Excel, Power BI, Google Data Studio, and use it to build analysis, live updating analysis and dashboards. And those dashboards can be shared out to your organization. So I see there is a ton of questions. So I'm going to pause here, look at the questions, stop my screen sharing, and see if I can answer some more questions. Okay. Again, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. Here we go. All right. Perfect. So let me just review the questions. All right, we'll do one at a time. So we have a question from Tanya, who wants to know, is there a way to I'll have the questionnaire output as a Word file instead of Excel with all the questions or variables? So currently, Tanya, the best way to do that is if you preview the form in the web view, you can't print out that web view and you will see the output. It includes all the questions, but it's not really a code book. There's a tool from one of our colleagues that lets you build a code book, and I'll make sure I'll note your question and make sure to send that out to you. Kristen has a question on Central about which roles can change data like that. Only project managers can change data like that. So your data collectors can't do that. Only people who have write access to the server can change data on the server. Tobias, what happens with the comment that one can add in the data edit session? Will it be listed somewhere when exporting the data? Tobias, the data, the comments are currently not attached to the data set. They're really sort of metadata. You can currently pull them down via the API, but our hope is that in the future we will make that exportable as well. So it's in the API, it's in the database, but it's not exportable just yet. There's some questions about data protection when using OData. How does this work? How does OData work with data encryption? That's a great question. Data encryption in Central is sort of end-to-end encryption. And so when you encrypt data with Central, it really is super encrypted. Or maybe take a step back. There's two levels of encryption in Central. There's sort of your regular encryption where it's like the data is sent in an encrypted channel and it's stored at rest in the database with an encrypted database on our infrastructure. So that's the default. But that obviously lets you see the data if you have the username and password. So if you want true encryption where everything is encrypted on the mobile device, it's encrypted in transit, it's encrypted before it's stored into the database, then for that setup, you cannot use OData because the data is encrypted and it's encrypted in the database and only you know the private key. So with those fully encrypted end-to-end forms, you do have to download the data onto your local machine, decrypt it on your local machine before you can do any analysis. So that's a trade-off. If you want full, total, I don't trust the infrastructure encryption, then you can't use OData, you can't use any of the visualization or the filtering or those kinds of things. Okay, Samuel had a question about if you can guide you how to do the link to the Excel. Samuel, all those things are in the documentation. And I should point out, ODK has really excellent documentation. So if you go to our docs, there is documentation on how exactly to do that link. It really is, you copy the URL, you paste it into Excel, and there you go. All right. Great questions. Madeline wanted to know, are the QR codes regenerated each time a form is generated? No, for the app users that I showed, the QR code is a one-time generation. It's essentially the username and password for each app user. So it's not generated each time a form is updated. It's generated one time, and you can share that QR code via WhatsApp. You can put it on a projector, and that's a unique QR code, a unique sort of authentication. You can also revoke those QR codes. If you hand it out and you see that it's being misused, you can revoke it and generate another one. Okay, some great questions. Central over aggregate. That's a really good question. For me, the big differences between central and aggregate, well, there's a couple. One is that Aggregate is no longer being updated. It's been around for 12 years. We've done our best to maintain it, but it's no longer being updated. And so that's a big feature, is that Central is being updated. Central is also really, really, really fast. It's just crazy fast. My favorite features are you can organize, you can have multiple projects to organize users, permissions, and forms. You can have submission, flagging, commenting, and editing. You can have unrestricted and automatic form updates. When you update a form in Central, it automatically shows up on the mobile data collector's device and it gets updated. And then you can connect, dashboards like I showed you. So those are the big differences. Shreya, apologies for mispronouncing your name. Does the state and action column show up in the data download? Yes. When you download the data set, there'll be a column called review state, and that column tells you if it's received, approved, rejected. So you can either filter it in your analysis or filter it before you download. So yeah, that information is in the column of the CSV and in the OData feed that we put out. These are all really great questions. Via the API, Jonathan, did you have data stored in a CSV, or that was just random data? Jonathan, that's just random data that I just generate for these demos. But you can, for example, use the API to import data by reading a CSV and then doing those submissions. Saad wants to know a dashboard example via Google Data Studio. If you go to Saad, if you go to getodk.org/GDS, as in Google Data Studio, you will get a link to the Google Data Studio integration. It hasn't been announced yet, but since we're all here, we're all friends, I figure I will send that out to you. So Saad, that's getodk.org/GDS. You see it there. Enrique, great question about whether or not we can do bulk edits. Bulk changes are something we want to do. It's coming. I don't have anything to announce just yet, but we know people want to do bulk edits. So that's going to come soon. Mohammed, can you publish and update the form via API? Yes. Everything that I've showed you in the UI, you can do via API. You can review via API. You can flag by API. You can update forms via API. You can generate QR codes via API. Everything that the UI is doing in the front end, is doing the same thing that you would do via the API. So the front end is just using the same API that you have access to update the form. Mike, will changing data in the Excel spreadsheet affect the data on the server? No, it won't. It's a one-way currently. And again, we know people want this feature, but we're working on that. Nothing to announce at the moment. For folks who want to learn how to sort of configure things step by step, our documentation has really great examples and help. And so I'd really encourage you to use the documentation. If you're not comfortable reading the documentation, that's what our cloud hosting is for. Our cloud hosting comes with support. We can get on a call, we can talk through how to configure it, and that's some of the value add of the cloud hosting. Any questions, any plans to add Build to Central? Build is our graphical form designer that a lot of people love and use. Build is interesting story. Build was built almost 10 years ago by one of my students at the University of Washington. And that same student is the same person who's building Central. So the person who built Build is building Central. And so she's really busy with Central right now, but we do want to do a new graphical form designer. And that's on our roadmap. It's something we want to do. I can't promise when it's going to come, but we know people want a better form designer, graphical form designer, and that's coming. We're not going to bundle Build into Central, but you can design your form in Build and publish it to Central for sure. Is there a way to migrate data from aggregate to Central? Absolutely. You can use Briefcase, and we have instructions on our documentation website on how to do that. If you use our cloud hosting, we can also help you migrate it. Is ODK Central free or paid? Again, Central is free in the sense that you can download it and install it on your own servers. We provide excellent documentation for all of that. It's not free if you want to use ODK Cloud. ODK Cloud is hosted Central. It runs on very fast infrastructure, and it comes with support from the core team. So again, it's free open source software, and If you install it yourself, it's totally free. If you want support or you want to use our infrastructure, that costs money because our infrastructure costs money. Fantastic questions. Looking. I know I've been I've been rattling these off one at a time here because there's a lot of questions. Let me look again to make sure I've covered most of the questions. And I have these questions saved, so I also shoot out an email with these to make sure folks have the answers that they want. All right, let me do one more review of the questions. It looks like a lot of people who have questions about how to do that linking. And I will show you an example of that just now. Kristen, the web questionnaires can't be saved and completed later just yet. They should be able to. Yeah, you can pause them. Well, maybe we haven't exposed that. Kristen, I will look into that. The feature is there. It might not be available in the user interface just yet. So I'll look into that and get back to you. Okay. Lots of good questions. Okay, great. Because there are a lot of questions about how to actually do that linking, I'm going to do that just now. Okay, I'm going to do that just now. So let me share my screen again, and we'll do it. See if we can do it. Where's my screen? So many windows. We'll share my screen. Okay. I believe everybody can see my screen now. I'm going to switch to Excel because it's basically the same thing, whether or not it's Power BI or not. Okay. So right now, I have just a regular old normal spreadsheet. And let's see, I need my central browser. Okay. All right, so I have a, well, let's just do the same thing. So I have my favorite color form, and I have this analyze via OData link here, right? So I'm going to click on the analyze via OData link, and you see that there's a big long URL here. I'm going to copy that URL. That's the link that I need. So I'm going to right click, copy it. I'm going to close it. Then I'm going to go into Excel. You can do this in Power BI, but I'm just going to start with Excel. I'm going to go into data and then get data here from other sources. And you see there's a link here to my OData feed. Click to the OData feed. I'm going to paste the URL there. I'm going to click OK. And it sees my submissions table, and then these are all the submissions. Unfortunately, Excel is like really tiny, but you can see all the submissions here. What I usually like to do is hit transform the data then, because there's a lot of columns that I don't necessarily care about. And so with OData, I don't like these columns. I'm going to remove these columns. I'm just going to do first name, last name, age. I don't care about location. So you can sort of remove columns. You can edit columns. You can do whatever you want. I don't care about this metadata column. All right, so I've defined some columns. I'm going to close and load. And then there it is. So that's my data with the columns that I cared about. So that's how you do that link between the with Central and Excel. And it's the same thing with Power BI. So again, you copy and paste this link here. You go to your data, get data from other sources, OData feed. You copy and paste that, and then it will synchronize it. So I'm going to stop the screen share so I can see everybody. All right, fantastic. I'm going to do another round of, I'm going to look through the Q&A. Okay. Azam had a question about, can you view the data? For example, if you uploaded a picture that is uploaded as part of the data, can you view that in the dashboard? Currently, you cannot, but it's a feature that's coming in the next couple of months. So you can embed multimedia, because you can collect pictures and videos with ODK, right? So that's a feature that's coming, so you can embed it in the dashboard. I'm not sure if we will do it with a direct link or give you the binary data. We're still figuring out those details, but that's coming soon. Okay. Aurelio, thank you for sharing that XLS to PDF tool. It's going to be in the showcase, and I'll make sure the person who asked that question sees that. Okay. People who've been having problems with the sound cutting on and off, the good news is that this is all recorded. And so I'll post a video. And so if you missed something, you can come back and rewatch you can gather your friends and your family to watch this webinar again. So that's fine. Fausto had a question about, is it possible to do a backup on Google Drive or manual and after restore the data? Yes, Central does come with backup built in that you can back up to Google Drive or manually via the API, and then you can restore that data. If you use ODK Cloud, you don't have to do that because we back up everything continuously anyway. So backups are possible, Fausto. Good question. Narendra had a question about, if you create one dashboard for one team, and you want that person to be able to log in with a username and password for maybe a personal dashboard. Central doesn't have that capability built in. You have to look at your dashboarding programs to do that. When we build dashboards for customers, we do something like that where we embed the dashboard in a web page, and then we put some usernames and passwords there in the web page so they can come to the website, they enter the information, and then they see the dashboard. Okay. Imani, is there a way to install Central directly on Tomcat versus Docker? No. So Central is really on entirely new infrastructures, on modern infrastructure. So we use Docker. There's no way to use Tomcat and bundle it. It really is built for Docker in a Docker container because that's where technology is going. Tabiti, if you delete a column, will it automatically delete as well in Central? Again, the link currently between the dashboard and Central is one way. So if you make a change in Central, it will be reflected in the dashboard. If you delete data in the dashboard, it's not yet reflected in Central, but it's something that we want to take on. But we can only do so many things at once. Great. So those are all the questions in the chat. All right, let me scroll. All right, there are a couple of questions here about, let's see. Oh, there's more great questions. I'm just gonna, are the questions okay? Is this helpful for people? I'm just answering questions as I see them. I've got 10 more minutes, so I can just keep going through the questions. Anonymous attendee, are there plans for integrating machine learning ML? Yes, absolutely. Actually, one of the features that we have in Collect now is that we know if you turn on auditing, we know the start and end time of every question that you've answered. We've known if you change any questions. There's a whole audit log that you can turn on in your form. And once that data is on the server, we can do machine learning to figure out what your outliers are, and who's doing well, who's not. And so that's functionality. That's the groundwork is there, but we are, we're working adding some of that functionality. So that's coming. Can we use the token generated while QR code scanning to create a username and password to log in? Yeah, this token is a unique identifier. And so, yeah, you can generate as many of those as you would like. Mike, can you link multiple visits? Okay, so that I have to answer in a different way. So what Mike is asking about really is sort of entity-based data collection or case management or these kinds of things. Well, I've got great news. Longitudinal case management style, baseline follow-up style data collection is coming to ODK. It is coming to ODK Central. We don't have a timeline, but we're in the design phases right now. And so you see progress on that in the coming months. It's going to be a big new feature, but yeah, it's coming. Form linking, these kinds of things are all coming. Shreya, yes, you no longer have to do the XLS to XML conversion. All that stuff is built into Central, so it's all automatic and up to date. So that's a great question. A question about ODKX. So ODK and ODKX they share a long history because they were started from the same research group at the University of Washington. As of in October, the projects are really now separate projects run by separate teams. And so I would say ODKX is great if you want to build custom applications that help you gather, manage, visualize your data on the device. It's a much more developer-facing tool currently. And so if you're interested in that use case, you check out the ODKX website. But at this point, there really are sort of separate projects run by separate teams. And so the ODKX team is the best folks to ask about that kind of work. There's also Jens, why did I do this in a virtual machine on my Mac? Because I don't want to soil my Mac with Windows, Jens. No. It's because Power BI is primarily a Windows tool. I think it's only available on Windows. And the OData feed is also only, the OData in Excel is only available on Windows. That's why I did it in a virtual machine. If it was just me, I would use R and use that integration currently. So hopefully that answers your question, Jens. We have a lot of questions about KOBO collect, and so I should talk about that. So one question that we get a lot is like, what is the difference between ODK and KOBO and ONA and Nemo? So I'm going to take a step back and say KOBO, ONA, and Nemo all use the ODK collect app to connect to their servers. In the case of ONA, it really is just the same app. It looks exactly the same. In the case of KOBO, the KOBO app is just ODK collect with a different logo and a different setting. That's the only difference. And in fact, the ODK team publishes and maintains the KOBO app. So it really is the same app. Now, their servers, they do different things. And the way to do those things is different. To be honest, my job isn't to look at what the other servers are doing. My job is to make sure that ODK Collect and ODK Central and ODK Cloud are working really well for folks. I would say for most people, when they're deciding between KOBO and say ODK, it ends up being about price. So KOBO server is free for a lot of humanitarian projects and up to some limit. For our users who become customers on ODK Cloud, the decision for them comes down to speed. And so at ODK, we provide fast, reliable, private hosting for projects. We take care of all the technology so you can focus on your data collection. So that's the first thing, is that it's private and fast, very fast infrastructure. Two, I think ODK has really, really amazing and fast support. So when you ask, if you're a customer, you ask a question about ODK, you will get a fast answer from the person who built the thing you're asking about and has deployed it at scale. So for a lot of our customers, that really rapid, less than 24-hour response is huge. And for a lot of projects, it can be the difference between a project success and a project failure. So that's why they use ODK Cloud versus, say, KOBO. They have the funding and they want the level of support. And then the last thing is that, ODK isn't perfect, but we are hyper-focused on producing and providing sort of the best offline data collection experience possible. I think over the last year, you've seen just how quickly we're shipping features that solve real problems for users. And that's going to accelerate in the next year or two. We just have a lot of stuff in the pipeline and we're shipping it really quickly. And so speed of the hosting, speed of the support, and how quickly we're shipping features. I think that's why people pick ODK, the core ODK, over some of the others in the space. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm going to look here more at the chat. There's a question here about trial accounts. We unfortunately cannot offer trial accounts yet on ODK Cloud, but we do offer refunds. So if you pay for ODK Cloud and it's not working for you, you send us an email, we'll give you your money back. But we don't have free trials. If you want a trial, you can download the software, you can install it on your own infrastructure, and you can really test it out that way. I'm looking through the questions again. There's a question about Google Sheets integration. I hear you. We've started with Google Data Studio. Let's see what the future holds. But we hear you that people want Google Sheets integration. I don't have anything to announce, but I've heard. Collins, submission date time variable. Submission date time variable is in there. There's start time, end time, submission time, who submitted it, and the instance ID. All that information is in the UI of Central, and you can find it. Christoph, is there a GitHub repo that we can find examples of the REST API with Python? No, but not yet. But their documentation is really good. The API documentation has got curl examples that are really helpful. I do want to share some of my scripts, and so I'll share those. And I think some folks, Ellen from Swiss TPH has also shared some of her scripts in the forum. So if you search for that, you will find it. And I'll also try to email you and give you a link or two. Looking. Saad, is there any way to do two-way data exchange with Collect? It's coming. I can't announce anything just yet, but yes, we do want to be able to do two-way. It's a big feature, and so we want to do the longitudinal stuff. We want to do the two-way stuff. It's coming, but nothing to announce today. Let's see. Great questions. Okay, now I can look at the chats. People are saying hooray. Yep. Jeremy is saying that Docker remains dedicated, not shared hosting. It is true that Docker, you can't use like a dream host or shared hosting in that way, but you can use very low cost hardware. So for example, a $5 plan on you can run Central on a $5 plan on DigitalOcean. It's not the fastest. There's no backups, there's no support, but you can do it on a $5, $10 plan. So that's pretty inexpensive, right? So if you have a really small project and you're technical, then a $5 VPS, a $10 VPS will work just fine. Again, the downside is that you do have to know how to SSH into a machine. You have to, run the Git commands, and the documentation is all there, so you can do it yourself. But then, you're sort of on your own as far as support or relying on it. Mike, will ODK be able to have SMS integration for reminders for follow-up visits? You notice that we have sort of that comment feed for submissions. Our goal is to be able to sort of bring more people into data collection projects. So right now, it's only people who have who are project managers who can leave comments, but we do want to be able to do messaging, so you can mention the data collector and they'll get a notification that they need to fix this form in some way. So these things are all in the pipeline, but it's a big pipeline. There's a lot of feature requests. Yeah, I'm looking at the time. we're right at the time. So what I want to do is I want to thank everyone who's been here, who's participated, who's used ODK. I hope that this was a very helpful and useful thing. We want to do, this is our first webinar. We want to do more webinars. So if this is useful, let me know, send me an email that it was useful, was helpful, what you liked, what you didn't like, and we'll try to do another one in a month, and either touch on maybe stuff that's in the mobile side. We can talk on about whatever questions that you find. But if you do have extra, so we can officially call this, that webinar closed, is done. Thank you for coming. But if you have 15 more minutes and you want to keep asking questions, I can be here for 15, 20 minutes and I can take even more questions. Okay, so for those who've come and have to go, thank you so much. It's really been a joy. I had a great time. But for those who want to stick around and take more questions, I can take more questions. So, and I'm going to do those questions. So Saad, since aggregate has been abandoned, is there a tool that can help us migrate? First of all, we haven't abandoned aggregate. We supported aggregate through some very hard years for almost 12 years. It's an old piece of code. The code is out there. So Saad, if you want to take up the maintenance burden, you can certainly do that. No, I'm just joking. Aggregate has reached its end of life. It's really hard for us to make progress on that code base. It's old. The technologies are no longer being supported. So it's just hard for us to make progress there. So there is a tool in our documentation. If you look at the ODK briefcase documentation side, you can find step-by-step instructions for exporting your data from briefcase, using briefcase from aggregate and importing it into Central. So we provide both the code to do that, the application to do that, and the documentation. And if you don't want to do that yourself, you can hire the core team and we can help you migrate it. If you use our cloud hosting, we can migrate your data from existing install for free. So there's lots of options there. So if you want to keep using aggregate, fantastic, but it becomes your maintenance burden, or you can have to pay somebody to do that. If you don't want to use it, we provide migration documentation, we provide migration tools, and we also can migrate it for you as a contract. Is there a way to remove group names when downloading CSVs? Man, yes. We hear you, yes, and that we hear you. Export options are coming in Central, so you can remove group names and those kinds of things. We know that's a big pain point. It's coming, and we've heard you. Case management, yeah, that's also on the horizon. I'm hoping that I can share some screenshots on the forum soon, because we've been mocking up some stuff and it looks really amazing. So that's coming too. Is ODK Collect coming to the iPhone? No. There's a ton of code in ODK currently, and it's just a lot of work to port it to iPhone. And the reality is most of our users, I mean, I have an iPhone, I use an iPhone, but most of our field users aren't using iPhones. And so there isn't a huge business case for it yet. Right now, the best way to fill out forms on an iPhone is to use Safari and use our web forms, and then it works really great, including some of the offline support. It works really great. But a native app on iPhone, I think we're a ways from there. It's just a lot of work, and it wouldn't be useful to that many users. Okay, but Khaled, if you have a very rich uncle who wants to pay for us to build it, then we can do that. But it's a lot of work, and it's not for most users using Android currently. Okay, crowdfunding as a way to implement new features. We've tried that over the years, Cindily, but the reality is that it just hasn't been very useful. So the way that we're funded now is that if there's a specific feature that your organization wants, you can write a feature request on the features post in the forum. The technical advisory board will take it under consideration. And if it's something that belongs in ODK and the ODK core, then absolutely we will put together a contract so your organization can pay for that and then it can be added. But crowdfunding historically hasn't really worked well for us to fund new features. The alternative is that if you have a feature that you want to build and you want to contribute and you want to organize people to build those features and contribute that code, we will gladly review that code, test it, merge it, and add it to ODK. Nitesh, when is ODK Collect rolling out? We have a release, I think, scheduled for mid-July, which will have a bunch of new features in it. So Collect is coming. A Collect update is coming. Can Central be configured on Windows or Linux? We primarily test and support Linux, but it is possible to install on Windows, on a Windows server. It's just we don't typically support that. So you will have to, you're sort of on your own there. If you do find success with it, please do post on the forum so others can learn from your experience. Okay, great, great, great. All right, all right, all right. There's still 72 participants here, so I'm going to take another pause. I've been talking a lot. If you have any questions that have not been answered or you think has not been answered fairly, please do drop it in the chat. Naomi, you have a question? She has raised her hand. Let me see. So many great questions. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point is that I think I'm going to close this out. Jeremy. There's a lot of questions. Yeah, it really was a barrage. Yeah, there's a ton of questions. So that's great. It's great that people are excited. So I'm going to close it out now. What I will do, my promise to everybody is that if you, all the open questions, I'm going to personally respond to each one and make sure that people have links and answers. So I will do that and make that available to everybody. Yeah, we'll try to publish this video to make sure everybody has access to it. And then we'll do another one next month because this is really fun. Jeremy, yes, it is early in the morning. I've actually been awake since 4. And I will absolutely, oh, it's out of focus. I will usually do this. Yeah, I'll absolutely need a nap after this, but this has been really fun. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for using ODK, for attending this webinar. I had a really, really great time. I'll drop my email again in the chat. If you have any other questions, things that I can help with, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm very available via email and chat. And I want to do my best to support your project. So thanks again. Have a great day, and I will see you all soon. Bye-bye.